Have you ever felt like you've been carrying something for far too long? A weight that doesn't belong to your body, but to your heart. A silent pressure that has followed you across the years, through joy, through sorrow, through moments no one else saw. Maybe it came from expectations, from loss, from trying to hold everything together for everyone else. And maybe, just maybe, you've started to wonder, is this stress really mine? Or have I mistaken it for something I must carry? In this quiet hour, let us pause together, not to fix anything, not to rush anywhere, but simply to listen, to stories, to stillness, to a truth that has been waiting inside you all along. Because sometimes the most healing thing we can do is to stop running and come home to ourselves. In the stillness of your heart, there is a quiet place, untouched by worry, unburdened by the past, and free from the weight of tomorrow. But most of us forget it is there. Life, with its endless demands and subtle pressures, pulls us outward toward noise, toward speed, toward control. Like a river carrying fallen leaves, it sweeps the mind into restlessness. And before long, we begin to believe that this tension is ours to bear, that stress is who we are. But stress is not yours. It's like a heavy coat someone handed you long ago, and you've worn it for so many years you forgot you could take it off. And yet you can. There is a way. A Zen story tells of a young monk named Riku who traveled across Japan seeking peace. He visited many temples, studied with great teachers, meditated under moonlight, fasted for weeks. But still, he felt anxious, tired, heavy. One evening he sat at the foot of an old master who said nothing to him, only offered a teacup. As the tea was poured, the liquid overflowed, spilling onto the floor. "Why are you overfilling it?" Riku asked. The master smiled. "Like this cup, you are full of your own thoughts, worries, and expectations. How can I offer you peace if you have no room left to receive it?" That night, Riku wept. Not from sorrow, but from recognition. He realized he had been carrying the world inside his head, trying to fix everything, understand everything, become everything. And in doing so, he had forgotten how to simply be. How often do we do the same? Perhaps you wake up with a weight already sitting on your chest, thoughts of what must be done, who you must be for others, how the day might unfold. There is no enemy in sight, yet the body tenses as if under attack. The heart races. The breath shortens. This is not weakness. This is the mind trying to protect you from what it doesn't fully understand. Modern psychology calls it anticipatory stress. The body prepares for imagined threats the same way it would for real ones. It doesn't differentiate between being chased by a tiger or worrying about your grown child's silence or the results of a medical test. And so the body tightens, floods with cortisol, stiffens the joints, clouds the clarity of thought. But what if the first step wasn't to fight stress, but to question its ownership? You were not born worried. Watch a baby. The way it cries when hungry, then laughs. Moments later, it does not cling to what passed. It does not fear what comes. It simply is. Over time, we learn differently. We are taught to plan, to expect, to brace. We begin to believe that worrying makes us responsible, that stress is a badge of care. But this, too, is learned. And what is learned can be unlearned. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from clinging, grasping at things as if they are solid and permanent, when they are not. Our thoughts, our worries, our fears, they arise, they linger, and they pass. Like clouds across a sky that was never theirs to own. A man once approached the Buddha, trembling with distress. "My life is full of problems," he said. "I want peace." The Buddha nodded. "Everyone has 83 problems," he replied. "Death, illness, aging, separation from those we love. But I can teach you about the 84th problem. The man blinked. What is that? The Buddha smiled gently, wanting not to have any problems. It is not that life must be without stress for peace to arise. It is that peace arises when you stop resisting what cannot be controlled. So consider this. What if you are not your stress? What if the tightness in your chest, the racing thoughts, the knot in your stomach? What if they are visitors, not residents? What if your true self is the spacious home that holds them gently, without becoming them? You are not the weather, you are the sky. Sometimes, that sky darkens with worry, but even then, it remains untouched at its core, calm, vast, quiet. You do not have to solve everything today. You do not have to carry what was never yours to hold. Begin instead with a breath, just one, and let it be full. Let it remind you that in this moment, nothing more is asked of you. Imagine an autumn leaf drifting through the air, spinning slowly, weightless, with nowhere to be. It does not resist the breeze nor cling to the branch from which it fell. It simply surrenders to the movement of life. This is not weakness, it is grace. And in this quiet surrender, there is wisdom we have long forgotten. The human mind, especially in later years, becomes a kind of collector, not of things but of tensions, accumulated regrets, unspoken words, old worries replayed like a worn record. As years pass, we are taught to carry more: the weight of a spouse's illness, the echo of a friend's absence, the feeling that we must remain strong even as our bodies ask us to rest. We shoulder it all silently, thinking that if we let go, we will somehow disappear. But the truth is, you do not vanish when you release what no longer serves you. You return. There is a story of an elderly woman named Claire who lived alone after her husband passed. Her days were quiet, but not peaceful. She filled them with to-do lists, errands, and calls to her children, anything to silence the unease that lingered like background noise. One morning, her neighbor invited her to sit in a small backyard garden. Just sit. No plans, no conversation. Claire resisted at first. "I don't have time," she said. "There's always something that needs doing." But something in the neighbor's stillness softened her, so she sat. For the first few minutes, her mind whirled. Shouldn't she be folding laundry, checking the mail? But then, she noticed the wind moving through the trees, the sun warming her face, the way her body softened without effort. She realized she hadn't allowed herself to do nothing in years, not really. And in that stillness, something within her exhaled. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means giving space. In Buddhism, there is the teaching of anicca, impermanence. Everything arises and passes away. Joy, sorrow, health, confusion, even stress. The trouble is not that we experience these things, but that we expect them to stay. We cling to the good moments, trying to hold them still. We push away the bad, hoping they will disappear. And in doing so, we create suffering on top of pain. But what happens when we allow things to come and go? A gentle awareness begins to bloom, like watching clouds drift without naming them. You begin to notice the space between thoughts, the pause between breaths. And in that space, something quiet and profound emerges, a sense of presence that needs nothing added and nothing removed. Psychologists now echo what the Buddha taught thousands of years ago. Mindfulness reduces the brain's stress response. But beyond science, mindfulness is an invitation to return to this moment fully, to take your attention off the story and place it gently on the breath, the body, the now. Right now, in this moment, can you sense the chair beneath you, the rhythm of your breathing, the sounds that arise and fade? This is not just awareness, it is intimacy with life. Ask yourself gently, What am I holding on to right now that is tightening my heart? Is it a conversation I replay in my head? A fear I can't name but always feel? A belief that I must always be busy, useful, strong? And if you can name it, can you begin, even slightly, to loosen your grip? There is an old Zen phrase, let go or be dragged, not as a warning, but as an invitation. Because holding on to stress, trying to control the uncontrollable, pulls us farther from peace. But letting go, even for a breath, is like setting down a bag we didn't know we were carrying. Stress is not yours, it's a shadow passing through. You are the light. So take a moment, breathe in, slowly, let it rise like a tide. And as you exhale, imagine it carrying away just one small worry, nothing grand, just a soft release. You don't need to fix your whole life. You just need to allow this moment to be enough. In a quiet monastery nestled in the mountains of Korea, there lived a monk known simply as Hyun. He was old, his back curved like a question mark, his hands weathered as bark, and yet when he walked, there was something effortless about him. Visitors often remarked that he seemed untouched by time, as if peace lived in his very bones. One young traveler, heavy with the burdens of a recent divorce and the illness of a parent, asked the monk his secret. Hyun simply smiled and said, "I carry nothing." The traveler, confused, pressed further. "But what about your past, your losses, your mistakes?" Hyun turned toward a stone wall and traced its moss with a finger. "They visit, but they do not stay. I welcome them, then bow as they leave." There is something remarkable about the human spirit when it learns not to cling. And yet, letting go is not about forgetting. It's about loosening the thread that ties your identity to what happened. For so many people, especially in the later seasons of life, stress is not caused by the present moment, but by memory. The memory of what might have been if you'd chosen differently. The memory of someone you loved slipping away too soon. The memory of promises broken, words left unsaid, doors never opened. But a memory is not a home. You cannot live there. Imagine walking through a field with a backpack. At first, the weight seems manageable. A few stones, grief, disappointment, uncertainty. But over the years you add more. Regrets, responsibilities, guilt. No one sees the load, but you feel it. Every morning, every sleepless night. The Buddha called this dukkha, often translated as suffering, but it also means unease, misalignment, friction. And so the question is not whether life will bring burdens. It will. The question is, how tightly are you clinging to them? A man in his 70s, recently retired, once shared how he struggled with sudden emptiness. Without the structure of work, he felt invisible. "I thought I was just tired," he said, "but I was actually grieving. Grieving the version of myself who always had somewhere to be." He began practicing mindfulness meditation, not to chase peace, but to sit with his discomfort. In doing so, he discovered something he had never noticed before: the sound of the wind through the blinds, the way his breath slowed when he stopped needing to rush, the subtle joy of watching light shift across his living room floor. These moments weren't grand, but they were real, and in their quiet, something began to mend. You too may be grieving, not a person, but a version of yourself. The one who could do more, lift more, give more. And that grief may disguise itself as restlessness, irritability, or chronic tension in your shoulders. But beneath all of it is a single truth. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to slow down, and you are not failing by needing rest. Stress tells you to push harder. Compassion invites you to soften. Buddhism teaches that everything is interconnected, that no feeling arises in isolation. Your stress is not just from now. It is a lifetime of patterns, of stories, of roles you had to play. But here is the freedom. Awareness changes everything. Right now, try this. Close your eyes for a moment and feel your body. Really feel it. Not the thoughts about your body, but the sensations. Is your jaw tight? Is your neck stiff? Is your heart asking for gentleness? You are not a machine. You are a field of sensations, emotions, stories, and none of them are final. Even the heaviest waves rise and fall. Even the deepest wounds begin to close when we stop picking at them. The next time stress visits, don't push it away. Don't try to solve it all at once. Instead, meet it like an old friend who's forgotten how to leave politely. Sit with it, listen, breathe, then gently, kindly show it the door. Because this life is short, but spacious. It is chaotic, but also filled with tiny doorways into peace. Sometimes, all it takes is the willingness to stop running, turn toward your inner landscape, and say, I don't need to carry this anymore. In the hush between moments where nothing is demanded and no one is watching, something tender begins to awaken, a quiet recognition that you were never meant to live under pressure. Like a bird who has forgotten it can fly, we often confine ourselves to invisible cages made of worry, duty, and unspoken grief. But the door is open. It always has been. There is a parable from the Buddha's time of a man wounded by a poisoned arrow. As others rushed to remove it, he insisted on knowing who shot it, what caste the archer belonged to, what kind of wood the arrow was made from, what direction it had come. The Buddha said, if he does not remove the arrow until all his questions are answered, he will die. So many of us live like that man. We want to know why life happened the way it did, why they left, why the illness came, why the apology never arrived. And while the mind searches for answers, the heart continues to bleed. Stress in this light is not just a feeling. It is the refusal to allow life to be what it already is. There was a woman named Janet, 68 years old, who visited a mindfulness retreat after her third cancer treatment. She had always been the caretaker for her husband, her children, her aging parents, her hands, her time, her attention, always given away. But now, faced with her own fragility, she felt hollowed out, not angry, just empty. I don't know who I am without something to manage, she admitted one afternoon. One of the retreat teachers, a monk named Thay Min, invited her to sit beside a willow tree. He pointed to a single branch. See how it bends, he said. It doesn't resist the wind. That's how it survives the storm. Then he added, can you let yourself bend instead of break? Janet wept. It was the first time anyone had told her she could stop being strong, that she could lean, that she could for once allow herself to receive instead of give. Let that idea sink in. You do not have to be strong all the time. You do not have to carry the whole family, the past or the future on your shoulders. You are allowed to soften. You are allowed to be held by the earth beneath your feet, by the breath that carries you, by the quiet, knowing that even now you are enough. Karma, as often misunderstood in the West, is not punishment. It is cause and effect. It is the ripple that follows the stone. Your stress has ripples too, not just in your health, but in the way you speak, the way you love, the way you see the world. But here is the gift. A gentle breath can send out a different ripple. The act of pausing, breathing, letting go, it is not passive. It is a powerful shift in your karma. It interrupts the habitual cycle and plants the seed of a new one. When you respond with presence instead of panic, with compassion instead of control, the ripple changes, and so does the world you inhabit. You don't have to wait for peace to find you in some distant future. It is here, in the small act of remembering that your worth is not measured by what you achieve, solve, or endure. Ask yourself now, who would I be without the belief that I must always hold it together? What might it feel like to trust that I am safe, even when I don't have all the answers? Picture this, a river that has flowed for decades, cutting through rocks, tumbling over falls, and then, one day, it reaches a wide, calm lake. The movement slows, the turbulence settles, and the water mirrors the sky. Nothing is lost in this stillness. In fact, everything is revealed. This is what happens when stress is released. When we stop trying to be the river and become the lake. You are not what has happened to you. You are not the tension in your back or the voice in your head. You are not even your thoughts. You are the space through which all these things pass. And that space, when seen clearly, is vast, luminous, and untouched by the chaos of the world. In the golden hour of a late summer afternoon, an old man sat quietly on his porch, his wrinkled hands wrapped around a cup of tea. His dog lay sleeping at his feet. A neighbor, half his age, passed by and asked, "Don't you get bored, sitting there day after day doing nothing?" The old man smiled softly and replied, "I'm not doing nothing. I'm learning to enjoy my own company." There is a deep wisdom in that stillness, a kind of healing that does not come from fixing or achieving, but from gently being with oneself without judgment. For many older adults, this can feel like unfamiliar territory. After decades of roles, parent, partner, worker, provider, what remains when the roles are gone? Who are you when the world no longer needs you to perform? The answer lies not in doing more, but in seeing differently. Stress, particularly in the later chapters of life, often arises not from external demands, but from internal expectations. We think we should feel more fulfilled by now. We should have more answers. We shouldn't be lonely. And in that gap between expectation and reality, suffering takes root. But Buddhist philosophy offers another way. The path of suchness. Suchness means allowing life to be exactly as it is. This breath, this body, this feeling, without the need to improve or resist it. It is the radical acceptance of the moment, not as resignation, but as reverence. Think of a withered tree in winter. It does not mourn its leaves, nor chase after spring. It stands bare and silent, trusting the cycle of life. This is suchness, and it is a doorway into deep peace. There was a man named Leonard, a retired school principal, who had lost his wife of 40 years. In the months after her passing, he filled his calendar with appointments, volunteer work, and social events. Keeping busy, he said, keeps the sadness away. But at night the grief returned, quiet but relentless, like a cold draft under the door. He began attending a meditation group, reluctantly at first. One evening, the teacher spoke about being with what is. Leonard scoffed. "What good is sitting with sadness?" he asked. The teacher looked at him gently and said, "Because sadness, when held with kindness, becomes something else. It becomes tenderness, and tenderness is not pain, it is love." Remembered. That night, Leonard went home and sat in his living room without distraction. No music, no news, no phone, just the photo of his wife on the mantel, the sound of the clock ticking. He let the tears come, not to drown him, but to wash him clean. For the first time in months, he felt close to her again, not through memory, but through presence. Grief, too, is not something to escape. It is a natural response to love. And when we stop resisting it, when we let ourselves feel fully without trying to fix it, it transforms. This is the invitation of mindfulness, not to escape discomfort, but to meet it with open eyes and a steady heart. Can you begin to sit with your own discomfort, even for a moment? Not to analyze it, but to feel it. Not to solve it, but to soften around it. The mind might say, I can't, but the breath says, try. And each breath is a teacher, rising, falling, returning. No judgment, no rush. You do not have to be fearless. You only have to be honest. Right now, this very moment, can you sense even a flicker of stillness within you? It might be small, just a quiet pause between thoughts, a softening in the belly, a whisper of relief. That is enough. That is the beginning. Let yourself rest in it. Let the noise fade. You are not falling behind. You are not broken. You are simply returning. Returning to the self that has always been here, patiently waiting beneath the layers of worry, regret, and trying. You are the tea, not the teacup, the sky, not the weather, the presence, not the performance. There is an old Japanese concept called wabi-sabi, a quiet beauty found in imperfection and transience. A cracked bowl, mended with gold, a weathered bench beneath a tree, the worn lines on an elder's face. These are not flaws. They are proof that life has been lived. That time has passed through gently, leaving behind traces of something sacred. In a world that constantly urges us to be more productive, more youthful, more in control, wabi-sabi teaches the opposite. Be less. Let yourself fade a little. Let things be incomplete. Let life, as it is, be enough. For many older adults, especially in Western culture, aging is framed as decline. You hear it in commercials, in waiting rooms, in glances that last a second too long. But Buddhist philosophy sees aging not as a falling away, but as a deepening, like an autumn tree turning gold, or a well-worn book whose spine tells the story of how often it was opened. In your later years, you are not disappearing, you are ripening. This truth is often hidden beneath the surface of daily stress, the appointments, medications, financial concerns, the ache of watching loved ones move on or fade away. But if you pause, even briefly, you'll see another current flowing beneath it all, the desire for peace. Not excitement, not conquest, just peace. And peace is not found in solving life. It is found in surrendering to it. There's a story of a Zen nun named Chiyuno who spent years meditating, seeking enlightenment with great diligence. One night, while carrying water in an old bamboo bucket, the bottom suddenly broke. The moon's reflection on the water vanished, and in that instant, she awakened. She wrote, "In this way and that I tried to save the old pail, since the bamboo strip was weakening and about to break, until at last the bottom fell out. No more water in the pail, no more moon in the water." Sometimes we try so hard to hold everything together, to repair the cracks, to manage appearances, but real freedom comes when the bottom falls out, and we realize that what we were chasing wasn't the moon at all, but our own reflection. Stress, then, is often the effort to hold the unholdable, to keep the bucket full, even as time weathers the bamboo. But what if the breaking is not the end? What if it's the beginning? Have you ever noticed that your deepest moments of clarity often come not during triumphs, but in the quiet after something has fallen apart? Perhaps it was after your retirement, when the noise finally stopped and the silence became its own kind of mirror. Perhaps it was after a diagnosis, when everything trivial fell away and only the essentials remained. Perhaps it was in the stillness of your home, where the echoes of children long grown linger like ghosts, asking nothing of you but remembrance. These moments are not empty. They are full, with insight, with softness, with truth. Stress loses its grip when we stop trying to outrun the reality of change. So ask yourself now, where in your life are you still trying to fix the bucket? What would happen if you allowed it to break and watched what light comes in. Even now, in this moment, there is nothing you must do, nothing you must change. You are not an unfinished project. You are not behind. You are a sacred process unfolding at your own pace, in your own season. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breath deepen. Let your mind know it is safe to rest. You do not have to explain yourself to anyone. You do not need to have answers. You are allowed to be here, exactly as you are. Tired, healing, human, and slowly, like mist rising from the ground at dawn, a gentle kind of peace may emerge. Not loud, not dramatic, just a knowing, a soft voice inside whispering, "I'm okay. I don't need to hold this anymore. I am allowed to let go." In the quiet spaces we so often overlook, early morning light through the blinds, the soft sound of your own breath, the familiar weight of your hands resting in your lap. Life whispers truths that busy minds cannot hear. One of those truths is this: nothing lasts and nothing is truly lost. Not love, not presence, not you. To a mind trained to plan, to control, and to anticipate, impermanence can feel like a threat. How do you make peace with the reality that everything you hold dear will eventually change? Your body, your home, the people you love, the rhythm of your days. It seems easier to brace against that truth than to let it in. And yet, impermanence is not a curse. It is a gift. It is what makes everything precious. Think of a sunset. Part of what makes it breathtaking is the fact that it doesn't last. You don't demand it to stay. You simply watch in awe as it unfolds. You pause, you soften, you let it move you, and then you let it go. What if we could learn to hold our lives the same way? There is a story from the Thai forest tradition of a monk who kept a cracked drinking cup. When asked why he didn't replace it, he smiled and said, "To remind myself that it's already broken." He didn't mean that in a morbid way. On the contrary, it allowed him to cherish the cup more fully. Each time he drank from it, he was present, grateful, aware of its briefness. He knew the moment would not last, and so he truly lived in it. This is the strange beauty of Buddhist wisdom. It doesn't hide from reality. It kneels beside it and offers a deeper view. In the West, we are taught to fear aging and loss. But the Dharma teaches us to reframe those experiences as thresholds, not endings. Each wrinkle, each farewell, each moment of stillness is not just a loss, but a doorway to deeper compassion. Think about it. Hasn't your pain made you more tender? Hasn't loss taught you what matters most? Hasn't age offered you a clarity that youth could never understand? You are not falling apart. You are falling into place. And still, the mind clings. It clings to should have, if only, not yet. It replays conversations that are long over, tries to rewrite the past, or projects fear into a future that hasn't arrived. This clinging, more than anything, is the root of stress. Not the situations themselves, but the tight grasping around them. But grasping is a habit, not a destiny. The next time your mind begins to spiral, pause and place your hand gently over your heart. Feel its rhythm. It does not rush. It does not demand. It simply beats, moment by moment, as it has for years. Through joy, through grief, through every forgotten Tuesday afternoon. It has never asked you to be anything other than alive. Now ask yourself quietly, what would it feel like to trust this moment? Not tomorrow, not some future version of yourself, just now. You may discover something surprising, that beneath the noise, beneath the grasping, there is already a peace waiting to be noticed. A stillness that doesn't need to be earned. A freedom that does not come from changing your life, but from changing how you meet it. Aging then becomes not a decline, but a deepening into presence and stress. It becomes an invitation not to control more, but to release more, to soften your grip, to open your hands, to let this breath come and go, and trust that another will follow. You are not a task to complete. You are a song being sung, a leaf riding the wind, a flame dancing gently in the dark, and you are already whole. So when stress knocks, as it surely will, meet it with eyes wide open. Say, I see you, I welcome you, but I do not belong to you. Let it pass, like weather, and in its place, let something quieter arise. Presence, grace, peace. In the closing pages of A Long and Beautiful Life, there is a hush, not silence, exactly, but a softening. The questions that once consumed us, am I enough? Did I do it right? What comes next? Begin to lose their sharpness. They blur like ink on paper left out in the rain, and in their place comes something unexpected, gentleness. It is here in this gentleness that the deepest truths become visible. You see it in the way the body asks to move slower now, in the way memories visit not to haunt, but to remind, in the way a simple morning can feel like a gift. Even if nothing special happens, you begin to realize that healing was never about going back. It was about arriving fully and kindly into this moment, just as it is. There is a story told in Zen circles about a master named Ripening, a wandering poet and monk. He lived simply, writing verses, caring for children in the village, bowing to the moon. One night, a thief broke into his little hut, only to find there was nothing to steal. Ripening returned home, caught the man in the act, and said gently, "You have come so far to visit me, and yet you will leave with nothing. Please take the moon too." The thief stood bewildered as Ripening sat outside, gazing at the sky. This story, often told with a smile, carries a deep truth. When we have released our attachments, when we no longer define ourselves by what we own, control or fix, then no one and nothing can truly take anything from us. Stress, at its core, is the fear of loss. But once you understand impermanence, not as something to dread, but as the natural rhythm of existence, that fear begins to soften. You see that you are not separate from the seasons, the tides, the stars slowly moving across the sky. You are part of it all, and what comes will go. What goes may come again. And so the final lesson is not how to get rid of stress, but how to meet it with a mind that does not cling and a heart that does not close. The Buddhist path is not a road of escape, but of return. Return to the breath. Return to compassion. Return to the quiet truth that you were never broken, only distracted. Now is the time to rest, not just the body, but the soul, to forgive the self who did their best with what they knew, to release the pressure to become more, and instead recognize the sacredness of what already is. If there are regrets, let them be teachers, not punishments. If there are aches, let them be reminders that you are still alive. If there are things left unsaid, speak them now, even silently, even to the wind. You are not too late, not for peace, not for healing, not for love. In fact, it is only now, in the richness of your maturity, that you can truly begin to see life was never about avoiding stress or pain. It was about remembering who you are, beneath it all, a being of awareness, of compassion, of light. The person who has learned to love themselves no longer fears losing anything. So here you are, after all these years of holding on. Perhaps you're finally ready to release. Not everything at once, not perfectly, just one breath at a time. You are not the weight you've carried. You are not the past that shaped you. You are not the fear that lingers at the edge of change. You are the one who can choose to soften now. Let the regrets rest. Let the noise fade. Let this moment be enough. Because peace doesn't come when life gets easier. It comes when you stop needing it to be anything other than what it is. And in that stillness, something quiet awakens, a kind of freedom no one can take from you. The person who has learned to love themselves no longer fears losing anything.